Welcome to day 4 of the 30-day English shadowing challenge. Today, we are going to practice English through a realistic job interview experience. Imagine that you have applied for a job that you really want. You receive an email from the company. They have selected your application. You have been invited to an interview. You feel excited, but at the same time, you feel nervous. You start thinking about all the questions they might ask. You wonder whether your English will be good enough. You wonder whether you will remember the answers. You wonder what will happen if you make a mistake. Today, we are going to practice that entire experience. You will listen to a story about preparing for an interview, joining the interview, answering questions, dealing with nervousness, and finishing the interview confidently. Listen carefully, then repeat each sentence aloud. Try to copy the rhythm and pronunciation. Don't worry about speaking perfectly. Just keep speaking. Let's begin. Yesterday morning, I received an email from a company where I had applied for a job. At first, I didn't pay much attention to the email. I thought it might be another rejection. But when I opened it, I was surprised. The company wanted to schedule an interview with me. I read the email twice because I couldn't believe it. I had finally received an interview invitation. I felt really happy. At the same time, I became nervous. I immediately started thinking about the interview. What questions would they ask? Would I be able to answer confidently? Would I make mistakes while speaking English? Would they ask me something I didn't know? I had so many questions in my mind. But instead of worrying, I decided to prepare. The first thing I did was read the job description carefully. I wanted to understand exactly what the company was looking for. I made a list of the skills mentioned in the job description. Then I compared those skills with my own knowledge. I also researched the company. I learned about their products, services, and work culture. I wanted to understand what kind of company I was going to interview with. After that, I prepared some common interview questions. I practiced answering questions about myself. I practiced talking about my education. I practiced explaining my skills. I practiced describing my projects. I also prepared answers about my strengths and weaknesses. Then I practiced answering one question that I was especially nervous about. Why should we hire you? I knew this was an important question. So I didn't memorize a complicated answer. Instead, I prepared a simple and honest response. I wanted my answer to sound natural. The night before the interview, I checked everything again. I checked the interview time. I checked the meeting link. I checked my internet connection. I checked my microphone and camera. I also kept my resume ready. I didn't want to face technical problems at the last minute. After preparing everything, I tried to relax. But honestly, I was still nervous. I kept imagining different situations. What if I couldn't answer a question? What if I forgot a word? What if I made a grammar mistake? What if I became too nervous to speak? Then I reminded myself of something important. I didn't need to be perfect. I just needed to communicate clearly. That thought made me feel a little better. Finally, I went to bed. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. I didn't want to rush. I had enough time to get ready. I had breakfast and drank some water. Then I looked through my resume one more time. I didn't try to learn anything new. I simply reviewed what I already knew. I reminded myself of my projects and skills. I also practiced my introduction one last time. I looked at myself in the mirror and started speaking. Hello, my name is. I repeated my introduction a few times. Then I stopped practicing. I realized that practicing too much was making me more nervous. So I took a deep breath. I told myself, I am prepared. I know my skills. I know my experience. I don't have to be perfect. I just need to be myself. A few minutes before the interview, I opened my laptop. My heart was beating faster than usual. I checked the meeting link again. Everything was ready. Then I clicked the link. For a few seconds, I just waited. Then the interviewer joined the meeting. I smiled and said, "Good morning." The interviewer smiled and replied, "Good morning. How are you today?" I said, "I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?" The interviewer said, "I'm doing well too. Shall we begin?" I replied, "Yes, absolutely." The interview had officially started. The first question was very common. Could you please tell me about yourself? I had prepared for this question. But when I heard it, I still felt a little nervous. For a moment, I forgot the first sentence of my answer. I took a breath. Then I started speaking. Certainly. My name is Elena. I have a background in computer science. I completed my education in computer applications. During my studies, I developed an interest in technology and data. I have worked on different projects to improve my practical knowledge. I have experience with tools such as Python, SQL, Excel, and Power BI. I enjoy analyzing information, solving problems, and learning new skills. At this stage of my career, I'm looking for an opportunity where I can use my knowledge, learn from experienced professionals, and grow with the organization. When I finished my introduction, I felt much more relaxed. The hardest part was over. The interviewer then asked me about my education. Could you tell me about your educational background? I answered calmly. I completed my bachelor's degree in computer science. After that, I completed my master's degree in computer applications. My education gave me a strong foundation in programming, databases, and computer applications. During my studies, I worked on projects that helped me understand how technology can be used to solve real-world problems. The interviewer then asked, which subject did you enjoy the most? I said, I particularly enjoyed programming and database management. I liked them because they require logical thinking and problem solving. I also enjoyed working on practical projects because they helped me understand concepts more clearly. The interviewer nodded. I felt more confident. Then the interviewer asked, what are your key skills? I answered, my key technical skills include Python, SQL, Excel, and Power BI. I have also worked on data cleaning, data analysis, and data visualization. Apart from technical skills, I believe communication, problem solving, and willingness to learn are also important. I'm continuously working on improving all of these areas. The interviewer asked, which skill are you most confident about? I said, I'm particularly comfortable with SQL and Excel. At the same time, I'm continuing to improve my Python and Power BI skills through regular practice and projects. I didn't try to say that I was an expert at everything. I simply answered honestly. The interviewer then asked, can you tell me about one of your projects? I was ready for this question. I said, sure. One of my projects involved analyzing data to identify useful patterns and insights. I started by understanding the dataset. Then I cleaned the data and handled missing or inconsistent values. After that, I analyzed the information using different techniques. Finally, I created visualizations to present the results clearly. The project helped me understand the importance of data quality and accurate analysis. The interviewer asked, what was the biggest challenge you faced? I replied, the biggest challenge was dealing with incomplete and inconsistent data. Some values were missing, and some information was not in the correct format. I had to carefully clean the data before starting the analysis. That experience taught me that good analysis begins with good quality data. I felt proud of my answer. Then came a question that I had been worried about. The interviewer asked, can you explain the gap in your career? I became nervous. For a moment, I didn't know how to begin. But I took a breath and answered honestly. Yes, I had a career gap because of personal circumstances. During that period, I was unable to continue my professional career. However, I didn't completely stop learning. I used that time to improve my skills and think carefully about my career goals. I have been working on technical skills and practical projects. Now, I am ready to return to the workplace and build my career again. The interviewer listened carefully. Then they asked, are you confident that you can adapt to a professional environment again? I said, yes, I am. I understand that returning after a gap may require effort. But I'm prepared to learn quickly, take responsibility, and work hard. I'm ready to prove myself through my work. After answering that question, I felt relieved. The interviewer then asked, what is your greatest strength? I answered, my greatest strength is my willingness to learn. When I don't understand something, I don't give up easily. I try different approaches until I understand it. I also pay attention to details and take responsibility for my work. Then came the next question. What is your weakness? I smiled slightly and answered, earlier, I sometimes spent too much time trying to make everything perfect. I realized that this could affect my productivity. So, I have been working on managing my time better. Now, I try to prioritize important tasks and complete them within a reasonable amount of time. The interviewer asked, what have you learned from that? I said, I learned that quality is important, but time management is important too. Then the interviewer asked one of the most important questions. Why should we hire you? I took a moment before answering. I didn't want to rush. Then I said, I believe you should consider me because I am hardworking, adaptable, and willing to learn. I have developed relevant technical skills and have practiced them through projects. I'm also comfortable learning new tools when necessary. I may be at an early stage of my professional career, but I'm serious about learning and contributing. If I get the opportunity, I will put in the effort to understand the work and become a valuable member of the team. The interviewer smiled. I felt much more confident. Then the interviewer asked me something I hadn't prepared for. What would you do if you were given a task that you didn't know how to complete? I thought for a moment. Then I answered, first, I would try to understand the requirement clearly. Then I would break the problem into smaller parts. I would use the knowledge I already have and try to find a solution. If I still needed help, I would research the topic or ask an experienced colleague for guidance. I believe asking for help when necessary is better than wasting a lot of time pretending that I know everything. The interviewer said, "That's a good approach." I felt relieved. The interviewer asked another question. "What would you do if you made a mistake at work?" I answered, first, I would acknowledge the mistake. Then I would understand what caused it. I would correct the problem as quickly as possible. After that, I would make sure I learned from the experience so that I wouldn't repeat the same mistake. If the mistake affected someone else, I would communicate with them honestly. The interviewer asked, "Are you afraid of making mistakes?" I said, "Of course, I don't want to make unnecessary mistakes. But I also understand that mistakes can happen while learning. What matters is how we respond to them." Then the interviewer asked, "Do you prefer working alone or working with a team?" I said, "I'm comfortable with both. When I need to focus on an individual task, I can work independently. At the same time, I enjoy working with a team because different people can bring different ideas and perspectives. I believe good teamwork requires communication, respect, and cooperation." The interviewer then asked, "How would you handle a disagreement with a teammate?" I answered, first, I would listen to their point of view. Then I would explain my perspective calmly. I would focus on solving the problem instead of making the disagreement personal. If necessary, I would involve a senior team member and ask for guidance. My goal would be to find the best solution for the project. The interviewer asked, "How do you handle pressure?" I said, "I try to stay calm and focus on the most important task first. When I have a lot of work, I break it into smaller tasks. Then I prioritize them based on deadlines and importance. I also try to communicate early if I think there may be a problem with a deadline. I believe clear communication can reduce unnecessary pressure." The interviewer asked, "What if you have 3 urgent tasks at the same time?" I answered, I would first understand the deadlines and priorities. Then I would decide which task needs immediate attention. If all 3 tasks were equally urgent, I would communicate with my manager and ask which one should be prioritized. I believe it's better to clarify priorities than to make assumptions. Then came a question that made me slightly uncomfortable. "What are your salary expectations?" I took a breath. Instead of giving a random number immediately, I said, "I'm open to discussing the salary based on the responsibilities of the position and the company's standards. My main priority is finding the right opportunity where I can learn, contribute, and grow. I'm open to having a reasonable discussion about the compensation." The interviewer thanked me for my answer. I felt comfortable with the way I had handled the question. Finally, the interviewer asked, "Do you have any questions for me?" I knew this was an important opportunity. So I asked, "Yes, thank you. Could you tell me more about the team I would be working with?" The interviewer explained the team structure. Then I asked, "What would a typical day in this position look like?" The interviewer explained the responsibilities. I asked one more question. "What would you expect from someone in this role during the first 3 months?" The interviewer gave me a detailed answer. Finally, I asked, "What are the next steps in the interview process?" The interviewer explained what would happen next. I thanked them for their time. The interviewer said, "Thank you for speaking with us today." I replied, "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview for this position. It was great learning more about the role in the company. I appreciate your time." The interviewer said, "We will get back to you after we complete the interview process." I smiled and said, "Thank you. I look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day." The interviewer replied, "You too. Goodbye." I said, "Goodbye." Then the call ended. The moment the interview ended, I took a deep breath. I realized something. The interview wasn't as scary as I had imagined. Yes, I was nervous. Yes, I made a few small mistakes. Yes, there were questions that I hadn't expected. But I continued speaking. I didn't give up when I forgot a word. I didn't stop when I made a grammar mistake. I simply took a breath and continued. And that was the most important lesson I learned. You don't need to speak perfect English in an interview. You need to communicate your thoughts clearly. You need to stay calm. You need to listen carefully. And you need to answer honestly. After the interview, I thought about my performance. I asked myself a few questions. Did I speak clearly? Did I explain my skills properly? Did I give specific examples? Did I listen carefully to the interviewer? Did I answer the questions directly? I also thought about the moments when I became nervous. I realized that nervousness wasn't my biggest problem. Overthinking was my biggest problem. When I stopped worrying about making mistakes, I started speaking more naturally. That taught me an important lesson. Confidence doesn't mean that you never feel nervous. Confidence means that you continue even when you feel nervous. Now, let's practice some useful interview sentences. I am prepared for this opportunity. I believe in my abilities. I am willing to learn. I am willing to take responsibility. I can learn new skills. I can adapt to new situations. I can work independently. I can work well with a team. I can communicate my ideas clearly. I can handle difficult situations calmly. I am open to feedback. I learn from my mistakes. I don't need to know everything. I just need to be willing to learn. I can take a moment before answering. I don't have to answer too quickly. I can ask for clarification when necessary. I can explain my experience clearly. I can talk about my projects confidently. I can explain my strengths honestly. I can talk about my weaknesses professionally. I can discuss my career gap confidently. I can answer difficult questions calmly. I don't need perfect English. I need clear English. I don't need a perfect accent. I need confidence. I don't need to memorize every answer. I need to understand what I'm saying. I can make mistakes and continue speaking. Every interview is a learning experience. Every conversation helps me improve. Every mistake teaches me something. My confidence is growing. My English is improving. I am becoming a better communicator. I am becoming more comfortable speaking English. I am preparing myself for better opportunities. I will keep practicing. I will keep learning. I will keep improving. I will not give up. I will speak with confidence. I am ready for my next interview. If you are preparing for a job interview, remember this. Don't try to sound perfect. Try to sound natural. Don't memorize every answer word for word. Understand your own experience. Know your skills. Know your projects. Know your strengths. Be honest about your weaknesses. Prepare for common questions, but also be ready for unexpected questions. Take a breath before answering. Speak slowly. Listen carefully. And if you make a mistake, don't panic. Correct yourself if necessary. Then continue speaking. One small mistake will not define your entire interview. Your confidence, attitude, preparation, and ability to communicate matter too. So don't wait until your English is perfect. Start practicing today. Practice until speaking becomes natural. Practice until you stop translating every sentence in your head. Practice until you can express your thoughts without fear. Your next interview can be better than your last one. And your next conversation can be better than today's. Keep practicing. Keep speaking. Keep improving. I'll see you in day 5 of the 30-day English shadowing challenge.